Good morning. It is Tuesday, the 12th of July. I was struck in the readings again from the Old Testament. Over the weekend, we finished off the readings from Deuteronomy, where we read of how Moses died and God was with him. In fact, it almost implies that God buried Moses, and to this day, no one knows where Moses was buried. And then we moved to the book of Joshua, and we read how Joshua assumes command, and Joshua then sends spies to the city of Jericho. And there we meet for the first time this woman called Rahab. And I want to just talk briefly about the death of Moses and Rahab and what we can glean from that. Moses is told he will never enter the promised land. The reason being he had not rebelled against God, but he had disobeyed God. He had allowed his anger to take control. And God, in God's justice, said that the consequence of that is that you will never enter the promised land. But, says God, and you read this in the end of Deuteronomy, how God takes Moses up a high mountain and there shows him, and you get the sense that it's not just Moses having this imaginary talk in his head, but there really is a sense in which God is personal and intimate and right there with Moses, and he shows Moses the promised land as far as the eye can see, and maybe miraculously Moses could see even further. And the way that God speaks with and interacts with Moses gives you a real sense of a father being alongside of the son. And so you get this incredible picture of God, of his desire for personal relationship, his intimacy with us, and yet also his righteousness and his justice. And I think as human beings, we think that we have a certain degree of latitude. If someone is friendly with us, we can use that friendship to our advantage. And with God, that's not the case. He has this incredible desire for relationship and friendship with us, but we never make use of God. So we must always keep that in mind. Joshua assumes command. He sends 2 spies to spy out the city of Jericho. And when the spies arrive, interestingly, they go straight to the house of a woman called Rahab, who is simply described as a prostitute. But it's interesting when one reads a little deeper. It's also considered that she may have been something of an innkeeper. Maybe as an innkeeper, she offered you a little more if you asked for it. Either way, the title of prostitute has stuck, and in Hebrews and James, she is referenced and is referenced as a prostitute. Other authors in other books, historical books, say that she may well have been an innkeeper. So we never really know, but it would kind of make sense to me that if she was an innkeeper, that's why the spies went straight there. She offered board and lodging and maybe something more. And there she befriended the spies, and she makes this incredible confession that although she is a Canaanite woman, in effect, she has come to realize that the God of the Israelites is truly the God of all. And so she makes a confession of faith and speaks as if she is an Israelite. And she puts her own life in jeopardy to save the life of the Israelite spies, permits them to escape, and in fact gives them advice on where they can run to hide in order to return to Joshua and not be captured and killed by the little local king of Jericho, which they do. And the story, as will unfold later this week, is that she and her family are saved from death. Now, we spoke a little bit about Moses and the fact that Moses had sinned and God held that against him. And yet there was still this degree of relationship and friendship and intimacy between them. And we look at Rahab, who, even if she was an innkeeper, certainly has earned the nickname, or the reputation rather, of being a prostitute as well. And yet she features in the lineage of Christ. This is not to say that God condones prostitution, but there's a sense in which God's grace says he's more interested in what we can become than what we used to be. So if we make that commitment of faith and we change our ways, we truly start all over again. And for me, that's the learning from this. God's grace is all around us, God's desire for friendship, And if we step out of line, God will correct us. And if we persist, there will then be a consequence. And Moses, we see, is an example of that, although he is still honored by God and by the people of Israel as being one of the greatest prophets Israel has ever had. But we also learn that, like Rahab, if we had a bad background and upbringing, we can change. And God desires of us for that change. And we will save our lives and we can start afresh and become new people. So I don't know what you've done in your life. God knows and you know. Give it to God, repent, and start afresh. And God truly will move you into a new place. And yeah, that reputation might be there, but you will be a new person. And like Rahab, you could become part of the lineage of God and part of his family forever. So folks, have a wonderful day. Remember our God. What an incredible God. Worship him and follow him. God bless.